Alright YouTube, so I'm not really sure how this episode is going to go. So basically I have a problem when it comes to rev matching on the E46. The FN2 seems a lot easier, the pedals seem at the right levels to do it quite easy, but I don't know, some people say the E46 is easy to do a rev match, but maybe my pedals are slightly different, I don't know. So basically when I'm braking hard, I try and move my foot over to hit the throttle is still a bit too low. It's not that it's too far away or anything, but it's still too low and I can't blip it. So what I thought I would do is, so I've got a foot pump, and this is the grip, which is the bit you stand on to pump it. So it's quite handy, it's quite a similar width, although the E46 one, it starts off I think about 4 centimeters and it sort of gets wider as it goes down. So what I was going to do was, so this needs maybe something about 3 or 4 mil thick to go inside. And then once I've done that, I was going to see if I could fasten it then to the throttle to give me an extra 8 mil, I reckon, which hopefully would be enough so when I'm chucking the brakes on, I can, as you know, I can actually hit the throttle when I try and rev match. So that's the plan. So I'll give it a go, see what happens. Can't really hurt, can it? And it might just make it a bit easier to rev match. It's just at the track. There's a couple of corners I notice, because mostly I'm in 3rd and 4th gear when I'm at Castle Combe, and I've noticed sometimes I can feel like the back wheels lock slightly when I change gear because I can't rev match properly. So there's my pedals. See if I can give you an idea of how much further the throttle is back. So when I'm braking, I just can't clip the pedal properly. What I'm going to try and do now is take the throttle pedal assembly off and then be a lot easier to work on. So I've looked online and it doesn't look too difficult to get the throttle assembly off. It's just a little clip that you ping down with a screwdriver and slide the assembly across, and it should come free, and then you just unattach the electrical connector. Might disconnect the battery first. I like to do that whenever I touch any of the electrics. So I'm not sure how easy it's going to be to film, because it's going to be hard enough for me to get into that space, let alone a camera as well, but let's see what I can do. Broken it. So yeah, typically, as you'd expect from, what was it, 17-year-old plastic, the little catch is broken off. Yeah, it really didn't want to come off. Yeah, it's not until this snapped that it came off, so yeah, expect to have to replace this. Oh well, what can you do? Could probably put like a self-tapping screw through it and screw it back onto this, but might just buy another one if I can get one cheap enough. So yeah, that's where the clip is snapped. This releases just by squeezing either side of it. But yeah, as you can see, I was using a pry bar just to push it away from the connection. so you can see quite clearly. This is where the clip was attached. So you come in through here, so you've got to go through that gap. So it's kind of like a two-stage clip. So initially it's clipped onto here, so you release that and then it will get stuck on that one. So yeah, you need a thin screwdriver to release it from the second clip. So we've got number 6 Allen key to get this off. You're trying to release both of those, and also trying to, while they're unclipped, lift the thing up. So that pry bar was quite useful underneath as well. Just be very delicate with it. We've had a slight change of plan. So I was making that pedal myself because the only ones I could get were from China, and I didn't really want to wait for 5 weeks, whatever, for one to arrive. As soon as I got a track day coming up, I finally actually been able to get a pedal, like an aluminium pedal cover set for from the UK. So that's arrived. So let me give you a little look. Right then, so yeah, that's obviously the pedal cover I was making. And then I've got these, which I'm quite pleased they look. At first glances, they look pretty good. I'll obviously won't be using all of them because I kind of defeat the object if I put one on the brake and the throttle one on. We're still going to end up with the throttle too low compared to the brake, so I'm just going to use this one, although I might do the clutch one, not sure, I'll have to decide on that. So it's kind of like a sort of 2-layer, like a rubber layer, where you've got the little rubber bits protrude from the front to give you a bit of grip. It's already got the holes in it, so I'll have to decide whether I want to use these little screws that came with it or little bolts or some of my own. But yeah, I'm quite pleased with that. Should do the job. It's going to give me, even when compressed, that's going to give me about 6 or 7 mil extra thickness. And so I've got the throttle unit inside the workshop. Finally got a bit of time to get the cover on. So it seems like a pretty good fit. So you've already got holes where you're going to put the screws or bolts through. And I've just tried, let me just push the throttle down to see whether they're going to be fouling on the unit underneath, but it seems to be okay. You just obviously can't have loads of thread sticking out the other end. So yeah, it looks good. I'm just going to have a little think about whether to put screws in or bolts. So I think I'm going to go with the little tiny bolts. These ones are like Allen key ones with a tiny little nut on the end. Not sure how small that is. I have to see if I've got a spanner or socket small enough for that. So the first problem I've come into, or come across, so these little bolts that come with it, so fine for the top, there's enough thread sticking out to get a nut on, and then the bottom, that's actually a little sort of screw type bolt that I already had, but the ones that came with, if I can hold it there, yeah, it's too short, so it's not gonna go all the way through the pedal down here and actually better get a nut on the end. So luckily I've already got some longer ones. These are just like Phillips driven, so they're not far off the right length. If I can just do this one-handed. So I'm trying to hold the pedal roughly where it's going to sit. And it's almost the right length. I think I'm just going to trim a little bit off that, because it is just touching it. So yeah, I'll trim a little bit off the two bottom ones, but for your reference, these, if I can get them out, I can't remember how long they are. Let me just grab a ruler. So if you get something about 20mm long, I mean, you could probably go 15mm, something like that. The ones that came with it are probably, with the head, about 13 or 14mm. So somewhere in between is pretty good for the two bottom bolts. So the little nuts that I've got, so to speak, are actually 6mm. So I've got a socket for that, which is handy. So I'm going to trim these down a little bit. So for anyone who hasn't done it before, you should always have the nut on first, and then I'll probably might use a Dremel, because these are so dainty, to cut through that, and then as you wind the nut off afterwards, it should sort out any thread from where the cut is. So you might need to go back and forwards, which might be tricky because it's so thin, but normally you'd have a bigger nut and you'd be sort of going back and forwards on the bit you just cut, just to make sure the thread's nice. Another thought I just had before I went off and cut that bolt back was, I was saying about a 6mm socket, which is fine for this one down here because there's plenty of space, but this one you're not going to fit a socket in to do that nut up. So luckily, I didn't think I had one, but I've actually got a 6mm ring spinner, which should just about fit in there. Didn't bother filming that, you don't really need to see me shortening some bolts. I ended up using the angle grinder because it was close to hand and already had a blade on it. So yeah, you just gotta file the ends a bit, and then yeah, just keep working the nut back and forwards across the bit you've cut, and just to sort it out a bit. So now I'm gonna use probably some of these little types of clamps, just to clamp this in place, and then I'll drill through these holes, and then obviously through the pedal. Alright, so latest update, I used a little 3mm wood drill, and obviously drilled through the pedal, and I've just pushed the bolts in ready. So what I'm going to do is put some Loctite on the threads, and then put the little nuts on, and then go and fit it in the beamer. Looks alright, I think, although I'm not really doing it for styling, because I suppose inevitably it's going to look a bit weird, because the throttle will be the only pedal that's got these nice fancy covers on them. Right, so it looks like we're pretty much there. I'm going to leave it this way up because I've just blobbed a load more Loctite on the outside. So I'm not sure whether you better pick this up, but I had to file away a bit of the plastic so I could get the nut nice and flush. So that wasn't too bad. I just used a tiny little file like that, and then because I broke the bracket that holds the throttle assembly on, I'm gonna have to probably use I'll probably have to use a self-tapping screw to hold the assembly to the bracket, unfortunately. But there we are. I think the only one I could find a new Even a used one of those brackets was like 40 something quid, and I thought, sod it, just for a broken clip, just use a self-tapping screw. So if you can't fix it with a self-tapping screw, duct tape, or cable ties, then yeah, it's a big job. So what tools are you going to need? So this is obviously going to vary depending on what types of bolts you've got, etc. But for me, I have my two sort of little plastic clamp things to hold the pedal cover on while I was drilling and attaching. I needed a little 3mm Allen key. Two of mine were Allen driven. The other one was a tiny little Phillips screwdriver head. Got a little tiny, well, got a little adjustable spanner, 6mm spanner, tiny little file, and what else do I need? I used a angle grinder and my drill with a little 3mm drill piece, the wood one. And I think that was it. I'm going to use a self-tapping screw as well. I think that was about it. There was whatever tool I used to remove the bracket from inside, from the footwell of the car. I can't remember what that was. It'll be in the video somewhere. But and then there was a couple of screwdrivers to ping some clips as well. Oh, and there was the Loctite as well. So I've just done a little test fitting of my self-tapping screw. So I was trying to decide where the best bit to go through. So that's the left-hand side. So I was trying to find a corresponding place in the bracket where there was plenty of meat to go through. So I decided on this bit up here. So you can see the hole there, and there's a bit of chunky plastic to screw through on the inside. So I've just I started off with a tiny little drill just to get going, and I've got quite a hefty self-tapping screw. I've got a thread pattern of probably about 4 or 5mm. That's probably 25mm long. That's what I'm going to use. I got some smaller ones, but they didn't go, they were a bit too short, so I'm going to use one of these. I mean, do this at your own risk, because obviously you don't want your throttle pedal coming loose while you're driving. But yeah, I'd advise definitely just to get a new bracket if you break the clip like everyone else in the world does when they try and undo it. Alright, there we are installed. So you can just see my little self-tapping screw there. And so hopefully, see if I can rig up a camera to see the footwork when I take it for a drive, to see whether I can heel and toe now, or whether it will just be a case of a camera looking at the rev counters. I'm not really sure where I can mount it under here, but anyway, that's what I was going for. So yeah, pleased with that, it looks alright. Nice and solid. So what's my verdict on that pedal cover I put on? Definitely makes it possible to do heel and toe. Unfortunately, I'm just don't have the skills, but I need to practice that. Thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Cheers.